Hello, hello, everybody. We're going to be having Michelle come in here in just a minute. Just a second, guys. We're going to get started. Hello, hello.
Hi.
Hello. How's it going? Can you hear me?
Yeah. How are you?
Perfect. I'm good. I'm good. I think I'm like everybody, a little burnt on both ends this week, but we're good. We're here. I'm happy to be here. Happy to have this conversation with you.
Definitely, man. I mean, I've seen you. How many protests have you been to so far?
We've only been to two actually. So we like reacted pretty quickly in LA and went to a protest, and then when we arrived back in New York, we went out to another one.
Amazing. Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, Melissa was there at the LA protests. She
Oh,
said it was
okay.
great. Yeah, she said it was great. She was like, I probably ran into them. I didn't even know. Yeah, she's out there. She's a beast. I actually haven't been to one yet. I had to do some things, and I was watching the videos, and I'm in tears. I was
Yeah.
crying. Like I was like, oh my God. Um, so yeah, man, usually I start these conversations off a little late, but I just really want to get into it with you because ever since I saw what you did last year, I've just been so, to be honest, I've been fascinated.
Hmm.
Um, so I want our followers to learn about you
Okay.
and to just learn about what you did and hopefully get some inspiration and motivation from that. I would like your followers also to hear about what we did and get, and have the same conversation. And I just want everyone to understand that they all have a place in this movement.
Hmm.
Wherever you are in your industry, your life, you have a place because right now there's a revolution happening.
Yes. Yes.
We
I
feel
agree.
it. So, yeah, man, I mean, I'm just so curious about you. Like I was on your page today, I was looking at your mom's page. I'm like, oh, even
Yeah.
your mom's doing Black Lives Matter. I'm just so curious about
Yeah.
what motivated you to do what you did that day. So please tell us what you did.
So I think the thing that has caused the most attention that people know me for now is taking a knee in Lima, Peru during the Pan American Games. And I did so actually not as a planned protest or something that was all about, um, it wasn't actually really that thought through. I'm a fencer, we don't have packed stadiums. It wasn't like there was a huge crowd of people in front of us. It just so happened that um, this time, when I took a knee, I took it because my mother sent me a text right before I was going on the podium about the shootings in El Paso at the time. So
Wow.
there was like really terrible shootings, and I remember just thinking like, and seeing the response from not only our leadership but the people in the area and the pro gun messages, and just like flicking through Twitter in that second. And this is all just moments before walking out, waiting in the back room. And I just turned to my teammates and I was like, I think I might kneel, guys. There's just so many problems right now in America. And you know, this was the beginning of it, and the things that I said in my post later on, because I always think it's important to take your actions and apply your voice to it to explain them, because I don't think that social media does a good job of letting people know where you're honestly coming from. And so I said it was about ending gun violence, racism, mistreatment of immigrants, and a president who is spreading hate. So those were the things that I had, and it hit mainstream media, and I went through the cycle. I just went through my 10 minutes of being on the top of every news channel, and realizing what it's like to have the world suddenly see you and you be stripped of everything that you do and just be seen as a person with this one statement, and people placing you in certain categories. um, and it widened my eyes to a lot of things, actually. And I think a lot of these moments for me have been lessons. Most
Mhm.
of them have been lessons. uh, and one of the things that I've tried to do recently is continue to take those lessons, and part of these are these hard conversations and speaking about the idea that there's a place for everyone in this movement. um, it is very difficult as a white privileged man to understand where your place is in that.
Mm.
Uh, and it's something that I'm learning about too. Like it's hilarious for me. I'm in a relationship with a black woman, a black Caribbean woman, and we have constant conversations and constant developments of like where I'm at and what it means and what I want and I think that's really important. And I think the only way you can do that is by reaching out to so many other people. So my big push recently, and like I don't know if you've seen it on social media, is like I've been speaking a lot about white privilege because I believe it's important to speak about the things you know about.
Yes.
I don't know about racism. I don't know I don't know what it's like to be killed in the street. I've never had a problem calling the police. I've never feared for my life to do so. So those issues don't impact me. But I do know that I care about people and I care about the idea that those issues can have an impact maybe on my future kids, can have an impact on my friends or those people that I love or my teammates. Um, and in order to be someone who I think is pivotal in society or makes a real change, and for me, that's always been people who have taken care of other people and spoken up for other people's situations, especially when they're not in them. Um,
Mm.
and this was all building. And I, I say that I'm very lucky because I got to be seen, and I took that knee, and I had taken a knee a year before, actually in
Oh.
Cairo. So I had taken a knee earlier. I took a knee with one of my teammates, who's an African American man, British American man, Miles Chamley Watson. He also took a knee. We took it together, and our teammates put our two other teammates hit their hands on their shoulder in support. They didn't want to protest, but we did it as kind of a group, and and it didn't go to the mainstream media and it didn't get hyped up and it wasn't anything, and it was, you know, it was done and it moved on and it was forgotten, but it was still something that was in our conversation. It was part of being in our team. Our team is diverse. Fencing is not a diverse sport. It is a
I
very
didn't think so.
yeah, it's not a diverse sport. um so there's a lot, and I think that it's a lot to unpack, and I'm excited to have conversations like this because I think it gives an opportunity for people to better understand that like I still don't know where my position is, and
Yeah.
I still haven't answered that question, which is like, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? How can I really impact positive change when this isn't my movement? It is a movement that I want to be a part of, but it is
Mhm.
my movement in a sense of like it's everyone's movement and everyone has a part to play, and I do absolutely agree with that. Um, but I'm also learning, like, I speak up a lot, and my immediate reaction is like, I see something wrong, I'm like, I'm going to say something about it. I'm going to use my platform. I'm going to say something about it. And I think I also sometimes I'm learning about um, how people feel about that as well. How people in the community around me, the black community around me, think that, you know, a white person should not be the face of anything. And I don't think that. I want to
Mm.
reiterate and say here personally that I don't want that. I don't want to be the face of anything. I want to be the face of my own platform, and that's the only thing
Mhm.
I have control over. And I'm just trying to use my platform the best that I can. Um, and I think we've seen a lot of advocacy recently. We've seen a lot of fake advocacy recently. We've seen a lot of statements. Um, and now the question is where that action applies and how that action applies to all of us.
1000%. Everyone that's listening, what comes next?
Yes.
You post a black square, you post Black Lives Matter. You know, it's only performative if that's all that you do.
Yes.
If you don't back it up by action, that's what makes it performative. But if
Sure.
you read something, if you reach out to people, if you talk to people, then you're actually doing the work.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't think any white people are necessarily the face of this movement, but you are doing your part.
Mm-hmm.
You are doing your part. I see your page. You're posting all the time. With you and your beautiful girlfriend, you're at these marches. You're having these conversations. You're in this conversation with me right now. You are modeling how you can have these conversations with someone that doesn't look like you. That's important because people don't know how to talk about race.
They don't. And neither do I. That's the truth. I'm
Yeah.
learning now. I
Yeah.
thought I did. I thought I did. Um,
Mm.
and I think that none of us do. I don't think anyone really does it. It's been such a quiet table behind the scenes
Exactly.
conversation for so long, for so
Yeah.
long. for me to come out and be able to say anything and make a statement and talk about race and talk about those feelings is very difficult. And it's very difficult to talk to somebody else and also sit and realize that, like, man, you've been doing so many things incorrectly as well. And all
Mm.
of us have. If you're a white person in an all white family from in America, you are skewed. Your vision
Yeah.
of what America is skewed. It's just how it is.
Everyone, I want everyone that's listening to really take in what he just said. That if you grew up in an all-white family in America, your perception is skewed. And I don't coddle people, but I do like to emphasize that it's also not your fault that it's skewed.
Mm-hmm.
We live, the system that we live in right now, it's not on accident. It is strategic, it is
Yep.
set up, it is on purpose, it is functioning exactly the way that it's supposed to be functioning. They don't
Sure.
want us having these conversations. I
No.
feel I don't know. I feel like since I became an activist, like there's probably like spies in my phone and shit all the time. I don't reckon know, but they're probably like,
Sure.
damn it, Michelle's in another conversation about race, talking to white people and
Yeah.
bringing people together. Yes, I
Yeah.
am. That's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. What did your teammates say when you said I'm gonna do this?
They were fine. Actually,
That's
very,
cool.
very, very, very relaxed about it. None of them had any issues. All of them were exactly the same with me before and after. It wasn't about them. They knew that. They were fine with
Yeah.
me taking my own steps towards what I wanted to do, and that was that.
Did you
And I was happy
anticipate?
that. Sorry.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, and I was happy that I was very glad that my actions didn't impede them. You know, like it didn't hurt
Yeah.
them. So so that's important too, and I think that's good.
How overwhelmed did you feel with all of that media, like immediately?
Oh, honestly, I got on a plane and I came back and I had planned to go see a friend of mine in Texas. And I arrived in Texas and I just like was like, I think I got to go back to New York. I think I got to
Wow.
get home. And the it was interesting because I was actually very excited to be able to feel like I was doing something positive.
Hmm.
Um, but I also realized how sensitive I needed to be about that excitement because it seems very
Mm.
easy to like to step in and like like I went on I talked to Don Lemon,
Wow.
and it's something that you see personally and you don't know whether you should speak up or stay quiet. Well, not necessarily quiet. I already spoke up, but like you don't know how far to take things. You still want to be appropriate and you still want to be sensitive. And this is obviously, I think, a time where everyone is, in my belief, almost overly sensitive to the fact that it kills the capacity to like organize and take action.
Yeah.
Um, like we need to be able to sit down and have hard conversations, and people need to be able to tell you exactly what they feel. Like you said, like less mollycoddling, but have the conversation. And the people who aren't at the table, I think, is the big issue. Um, so I was overwhelmed, but I was very excited to feel like I was a part of something. It gave my voice an even greater sense of weight. And I was excited about that. And I kind of, uh, I knew that this would be a moment to continue. It was like, oh, wow, a path just opened up for me to actually have an opportunity to do something important. Fencing is very personal. It's all about me. It's all about winning. It's all about my medals and me and me and me. Um, so having that is for me been a big change. Oh, I think we're frozen a little bit. Oh, we're back.
Oh, we're back. Yeah, it's interesting because Melissa felt this very same thing, exact same thing as you. She was not sure how far to
Hmm.
take this, and I had to keep championing her. And I was like, listen, girl, and I'm like, we don't have enough. I don't know, we don't have enough white people speaking out because racism is not really our problem. It's a problem that was
Yes,
constructed by the founding fathers of this country who were white men. So if
this
we
is
could
true.
end racism tomorrow, we would. Of course, it would be
Hmm.
over. It would be done. That's why we need all of our voices coming together. We need white voices in this conversation. We need white people to examine the ways in which they have been lied to. We've all been lied to. Examine your biases. They're there. I have biases. Listen, man, when
Hmm.
I see a bald white guy walking on the street with tattoos, I get scared that he's in the KKK.
Hmm.
Straight up, I'm like, oh my God, and then
Sure.
like that's because that's the image that I have been given about what these people look like. And little do I know, it's my freaking coworker that's been sitting in the cubicle next to me for the past 2 years. You know what I
Sure.
mean? Um, and that really blew my mind. I actually have a friend that actually fits that description exactly, and he dates black women. And I'm
Yeah.
like, damn, I really, you know what I mean? Like,
Sure. Sure.
I totally got you wrong.
Yeah.
And we have to be able in those moments to recognize that and just realize that it's information we have been fed, and we
Yes.
have been purposefully um purposely divided, and I'm also very curious about your girlfriend. I want to know how much she's played a role in this for you, how much she's played a role in your understanding or your advancement in this.
You know, I think people always, you see it online all the time, like the people actually, I think, use their black girlfriends, especially as white men, we use our black girlfriends as an excuse to say we're not racist a lot of the time.
Mm, thank
And I
you. I've dated
see
great.
that,
I've
yeah,
dated racist white
yeah,
boys.
yeah. And I've
Tell
seen that,
me.
I've seen that be online a lot. Um, Isa comes from a very different culture. She's from Guadeloupe. It's a small Caribbean island, and she is French, and she competes for France. And so
Hmm.
her vision and the way they talk about racism in France is very different than we talk about in America. And
Mm,
so working actually together to progress each equally, actually, I think that like we see each other and we respect each other and we listen to what each other we have to say, and we make plans that are different. It's the same as competing. It's the same as being a teammate. You look at each other and you say, look, you're not going to train the same way I do to be a winner, and we're trying to win at this, right? So
right.
the whole idea is that the only way we can get better is both of us get better doing things differently to achieve a common goal, and that's just what we've been doing with each other. And that's what we apply to everything. She's the biggest champion in that. And then the thing that I will say is that we've had conversations about kids, and one of those things that you have to understand as a is that as a white man is that my kid might come out not looking like me, and if he doesn't, the reality of his world changes in that moment, or
Yeah.
her. And then we get into other issues when you're talking about a black man or a black woman and the different things that are affected because of that. So having each of those conversations and breaking it down by systematic, like what the system does, what happens, what it's like, and facing those, suddenly you realize that you're not so far away from it. You're very close to it. And it becomes very important to you. So yes, of course, being in a real uh, deep and meaningful relationship with a black woman, of course, is going to change your perspective, as it should. As any relationship with anyone you love should change your perspectives, but
Yes.
especially that of someone who's a person of color. And
Yes.
I've always said that, and I've always been open about that. And of course, it has changed my views. And I do believe she gives me a better understanding and sometimes checks me when I say something that I'm like, and one of those checks recently, and I said this just on the phone, is like when I saw the video of George Floyd,
Hmm.
we were away. We went up to this like little tent and we were away. And I was angry, you know? And I was angry like I think everybody was after they saw that video. And I was angry, I was angry, I was going, I started talking, I started ranting, I didn't understand, saying like this is ridiculous, we need to stop this shit, we need to move on, like this has to be like there has to be change, this is the last straw. And she was like, just shut up, sit down. This is not about you. Just take a second,
Mm,
And it's important. It's important to hear that. And she was like, you're upset. This isn't about you. This is about what's going on, Like your upsetness doesn't matter right now. And it
wow.
and it was really difficult. It was a really difficult conversation. And I sat down and I was like shocked,
Yeah.
And she was a on the nose, like she was right.
Yeah.
And so we stopped. We had the conversation. She said, "What does this mean? Like, where's our places in this? We're athletes, And like you said, you're an activist, and this is what you do day in, day out. You talk about these things. We're athletes,
Hmm.
and we use our platform to the best of our ability. And I love. I just saw the singer Janae.
Yes.
She posted, "I'm not about this life. I'm an activist, but I'm not about that life. I don't go out every day in and out. I'm not, that's not me either.
Right.
I'm here to do my best to be a part of the conversation, be a part of the change, and finding the people and supporting the people that are really about that life. And I think all of us need to be doing that. And if you have a big platform, give that platform over to them. Like,
Yeah.
post their stuff on their platform, spread your message, share your views, but also find a place to put those people in bigger light and amplify them.
1,000%. That's literally our message at P2P. If
Yep.
you have a platform, use it. Everybody has a platform. Even if you
Yep.
have 10 followers, you have a circle of influence of people that are watching what you post.
Sure.
And you're gonna know, and I told people recently, I had a friend reach out to me. He's like 65,000 followers, and his friends are mostly black. He's a white man. We used to party together in our 20s, and he said, I realized that I know that I have racist friends, and what is this gonna mean for me when I post? I haven't wanted to post. I didn't want to piss anybody off,
Mm-hmm.
and I said, well, tell me about some of the things that you've seen with your friends. And he could rattle off instances of racism that he's seen with his friends. And I
Sure.
said, well, I'm sure your friends would appreciate that, but just know that when you start doing this, you might lose people.
You will.
You're going to lose people. Like when I
Mm-hmm.
saw the reaction to what you did, um, well, first I immediately realized that fencing wasn't very diverse because I was like, damn, I was like, he's getting a lot of pushback for this. Like
Mm-hmm.
people are pissed.
Yeah.
Which was insane to me. But it's all spectrums. But like I said, I really absolutely believe that we are in a revolution right now. And if people want to fall off and fall back and drop off, and if they want to spend their last dying day, their last days on this earth realizing that they were on the wrong side of history, I'm okay with that now. I lost friends from this in the very beginning, friends that I've had for 26 years.
Sure.
26 years, a
Sure.
white best friend of mine, because you know why? Because we never actually had the conversation about race.
Yeah.
We never actually talked about it. I dated white boys and I've had to check them often. And, I thought to myself, my boyfriend now is black, but, I said to myself, it can be exhausting. And I love that you said that just because you're dating someone black doesn't mean that you're not racist. Um, there's so many layers to this. There's so many layers. Just because you're in a relationship, just because you're in a friendship, it doesn't mean that you have to do that internal work,
Yes.
you know? Um, that I think it's really powerful for people to understand that. I mean, I've been in relationships for years, 2 years in, and another racist statement comes up, right? And you're like, how?
Yeah.
How is this still happening, right?
Yep.
You need to have the strength and have the courage to bring up those conversations and move forward. And that's like, I mean, that's what I love about. Well, I pretend like I know you and your girlfriend
Yeah.
online, even though,
Yeah.
but that's what I envision because for me,
That's good. That's what we're trying to achieve. We want people to protect. Yeah,
right,
we got a business to do over here too. We're trying to survive.
right,
So you know us. Yeah.
exactly. I'm like, no, I know race, it's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But I've had issues with that, and I'm like, man, and I'm like, that's why I wanted to get on this live with you because I just want people to see that we can have these conversations. I want people to understand that even as a white man, you have space. We are holding space for you. We want more white men in this conversation.
Hmm.
I know that I had the last guy that I dated that happened to be white. I know I changed his entire family. Like his sister ended up being a director of operations. His parents
Nice.
were like, tell me what we can do to help you. And I don't think that they would have been like that before he had been dating me, right?
Sure.
And so even for us black people, like we don't need to do any more labor than we're already doing.
No,
We don't need to do anything else. However, every time that we speak up to, it is influencing the people around us.
it is.
Like, I don't know your mother, but it sounds like she lit that fire underneath you a little bit. I don't know your
She
girlfriend, but,
was.
you know,
She was definitely one of the most. My parents were very, very excellent at I grew up in a diverse life. So like I
mm,
was born in Florida. We lived in Atlanta. Um, and then we moved to New York. And so I saw a lot of different sides of the coin. I was one of the only white kids in my school in Atlanta. We moved to
oh
New
wow,
York. I went to school in Bay Ridge, which is like the maximum diversity that you can achieve in New York public school, where it's wide, widespread with many different races and origins and cultures. And then I started fencing and I got good at fencing and I needed to travel. So I ended up getting a scholarship to go to a private school in Manhattan. And I went to having one token black kid in our class, you know, like
Wow.
just one, and realizing very quickly and talking to my parents about it. And my parents were taking me to things. We grew up in Brooklyn. We were going to different events, and they were taking me to different cultural things, and they made a point of doing so. And my mother is the person who pushes me especially, and my father is when my father says something, his words mean a lot. They're very heavy, but my mother is the woman who will call me constantly and just say, like, no matter what you're doing, you need to be pushing for the right thing in the right direction. And she's always said that there is not a moment, there's not a time that's right to not speak up. And that's been her thing from the get. Like, she would give me Martin Luther King's quotes for my birthday, and have things written in them and circled, and it was important to her to put that and instill that in me. And I thank them a lot for that. But
Wow.
then adding that to the reality of my world, which is fencing and sport, which crosses boundaries and economic boundaries, and talking to people, and just realizing that this is everywhere. And
Yeah.
and I think what you said is awesome. And I think it's the same thing for me, is that, like, a lot of the times when we believe we're not racist, which I think all of us do, even the people who are, it's when we believe we're not, we don't have the conversation. And I didn't have the conversation with a lot of my teammates, per se, because I just said, like, I don't think of you that way. Like, I've never
Mhm.
thought of you that way. And if someone was to come and say something bad to you, I would stand up for you, you know?
Mhm.
And that was my thing in my head. So the conversation never happened.
Mhm.
And that's definitely and absolutely something that I think that if I could do again, I would do differently.
That's such a good point. Because I mean, that was our whole Starbucks issue. Like, people, we guarantee people that were sitting at Starbucks that day probably assumed that they weren't racist. None of
Mm-hmm.
them probably thought that they were racist, and I'm sure that they assumed that if
If
they
you're
saw
my
something,
follower, you guys should go watch that. Do you want to explain what that was, in case they haven't
yes.
seen it?
So, um, Melissa and I, my partner now, we were the women that are responsible for the viral video of the two black men arrested in the Philadelphia Starbucks in 2018. So her and I were complete strangers, didn't know each other. And it's interesting because Philadelphia itself is a very diverse city. It's one of the blackest cities in America. But the area where the Starbucks is, it's a very gentrified white part of the city. So that specific Starbucks, I didn't like to go to that one because it wasn't diverse. I would
Mm-hmm.
walk an additional like 4 blocks into the deeper in the city just so that I was around different people.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So which is just it was wild that you could just walk 4 blocks and everybody is different, right? That's how effective gentrification is. So I lived in Philly for 5 years. And at this point now, I really believe that it was divine intervention because something told me, go to the Starbucks that day. I don't know why. I already knew that it wasn't diverse. I don't know why I would choose to go there, but my body said, you're going to the Starbucks today. And I said, okay. So I went. And it was the same story. I saw one other black guy in there, one brown guy, everybody else was white. And I was like, well, whatever. I'm already here. So like, I'm just going to sit down. So about 45 minutes later, I saw two black kids walk in. And when you're one of the only people of color and other people come into space, you notice them, you're kind of excited. You're like, yes, yes, yes. Like,
Mm.
you want to like, you want them to acknowledge you. I remember one time I was at the beach and like, I saw one other black woman at this really, really white beach and I waved at her. I was like, hi.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's
So
it's
embarrassing.
stuff like that, though. It's stuff like that people that we don't understand, that we don't hear,
Right.
like that we don't get like the fact that you would go an extra 4 blocks to go to a different Starbucks, for me is something that
Right.
we don't understand. It's just something that we'll never understand. That uncomfort all the time, you
Right.
know?
Right.
It's crazy.
So these two guys walk in, they walked up to the barista, and I was watching them because now I'm curious, right? And I was curious as to what maybe their reaction would be walking into like a pretty much entirely white Starbucks. So they went to the barista and they said, "Can we use the bathroom?" And she said, "No, it's for paying customers only." And that was it. That was literally it. And they said, "Okay," and they sat down. And she started walking away, and I saw her like mouthing something to herself. And my first thought was, she just said something racist. I don't know why I thought that. It was like it was like gut reaction. I was like, ooh, she just said something racist. But
Mm.
when you have those thoughts, you need to check yourself. I don't know where that thought came from. I was like, Michelle, you don't know, you're being prejudiced. You don't know what she said. Maybe she forgot some simple syrup in the
Mm,
back. Maybe she forgot something. You have no idea. And you need to put your head down and work and mind your business.
mm,
That's literally what I was having a talk with myself to stop looking at this woman like I didn't like her.
sure.
So I put my head down. I'm working. 5 minutes later, 2 cops show up. And I was like, that's weird. I've been here for 45 minutes. Nothing's happened. So I'm thinking they're responding to something from earlier in the day. I'm
Hmm.
thinking they're responding to something maybe even the day before. So I'm trying to eavesdrop because I want to know the drama. I'm like, I want to know the dirt. Like, ooh, like this is juicy. Like, look, what's going on. So I'm close enough to them to be able to hear. And I heard her lie. And I heard her say, those 2 guys in the corner are refusing to leave. And I was like, oh my God. She probably did say something racist. Because
Hmm.
why would I think that? And then 5 minutes later, I hear her lie and say that she didn't ask them to leave. There was nothing that happened for her to ask them to leave. It was quiet. It was silent. There had nothing had went on. I was like, hold on. I was like,
And for
oh my
those
God.
people, are you recording at this point? So for people who
No,
aren't seeing it, and guys, I'll post a link afterwards to the video as well, so you guys
yeah.
can see it.
No, I didn't. I didn't at first. I started just getting anxious. If you've ever had like a panic attack, it's like, your hands start getting clammy. I remember actually looking at my hands because I was like, I was like, shit. I was like, I'm feeling again. I look over at the 2 guys to my right. They look at me. I look at the cops. They look at the cops. Because at this point now the cops, and by the way, there was no question. There was no investigation. They didn't
Yeah.
ask one single follow-up question. They just said, those 2? She said, yeah, as, like this fake damsel in distress type of voice. Yeah, those 2 guys. And I was like, oh my God, this bitch. So they just beeline for these guys.
Hmm.
So I'm watching them to see their reaction. I'm like, Lord, I cannot see an act of police brutality in front of me. I do not know if I would be able to emotionally or mentally deal with that. But
Sure.
because of the immediate compliance of them to just remove them, I was worried that could very easily happen.
I mean,
So
especially, I think the other thing too that I want to bring up and to speak especially to white people here is that imagine if you're those 2 kids. If it was a white person, you would be allowed to be angry. This is a
exactly.
big difference too, and this is something that I think that needs to be talked about. A cop beelines to you when you've done nothing wrong, you would be angry. And a lot of the times we see and you watch people talk. I've been in groups of white people where they look at videos of police brutality and they go, well, he's aggravating, he's mad, he's doing this. Look, he's acting in the cops. I would have never acted like that. You would absolutely act like that if you're being accused of something that you did not do. And if you don't, you're not a human being, you're a robot. So the thing for me is that I just want to just say that right away is that whatever their reaction is, it's proper. If they can keep their heads about them and somehow stay calm, it's because they have been taught by a system that is not ours, which is a system of safety by the Black community to keep themselves safe. And the same way that you guys are all going through that same conversation with each other just by looking at each other, that's the whole issue that needs to be broken. And that's the thing that never gets broken down. There's no like we see the anger, we see the video angry, we decide to be with them or not with them, but they never understand that would be you too if you were in the same situation. I'm sorry to cut you off. I
Yep.
just think it's important for them to hear that, especially from
Yep.
someone who looks like me. It's like I would be angry if I was a teenager. I was angry all the time when I was on jumping the turnstile doing the wrong thing. I never, like trying to not pay the subway fee. If a cop stopped me,
Right.
I would, in my head, I'm thinking, am I going to run for it? Am I going to try to get on the train? Like, I'm going to be okay. You know, it's never a fear for me.
Exactly. Exactly.
Sorry.
And it's interesting because there were some white girls. No, it's fine. No, no,
Yeah.
no. It's fine because there were some white girls who said the exact same thing. They were like, we would have been so angry if that happened to
Yes.
us. And I said, and you would have been able to because you're white. And they looked at
Yep.
each other and they were like, oh, you know what? You're right.
Yep.
You're 1,000% right. I remember that happened to me once. Sidetrack for just a minute. I was racially profiled by the police. And I was only 23, so I didn't really understand systemic oppression at that point in my life. I didn't really totally get it. And I was accused of something that I didn't do. They thought I was a thieving prostitute. Like, they actually literally thought I was a thieving whore. I fit the description of a skinny Black woman, and they thought I was a thieving whore. I had 2 jobs at the time. I was like, what are you talking about? And when the cop treated me poorly, I told him, I said, that's not okay. You can't treat me like that. And he told me it was my fault.
My
I
God.
was like, wait, what? I don't
But that
understand
can,
how.
Didn't that
How
happen to a very famous actress as well? They thought she was a prostitute like a while ago. She was in the car with her husband or something, or her boyfriend
really
at the time. I'm pretty
was her
sure.
boyfriend white?
No,
Interesting.
I don't
They
think
just thought,
so.
they just thought she was a. It was maddening, and what was actually more. Now that I think about it, it was more. I was I'm kind of annoyed now, but I wasn't at the time. A white cop, actually a female cop, grabbed my arm, pulled me to the side, and she told me that I should report him the next day because she's seen him be racist before. Fast forward years later, I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, why did
She
she
should report him.
intervene? Yeah,
Yeah, this
I went
issue.
and reported
Yeah,
him. I'm like, why wouldn't you intervene in the moment that you're watching it happen? And
yes,
why don't you report him? If you've seen it happen before, why don't you report him?
yeah, totally, absolutely.
Insanity. So, anyways,
So they
he
beeline for the two young men,
beeline for them.
the cops.
Beeline.
Yep.
And they said you're gonna have to leave. And they were like, why? That just doesn't make any. What do you mean we have to leave? They're like, the manager wants you to leave. And they were calm, but they were like, this doesn't make any sense. You need to tell me why you're removing me. We're meeting somewhere. They were actually waiting for a business partner that happened to show up, a white man, happened to be Jewish, and he said the same thing I was. He was like, how is this not racial discrimination right now? Like, is this not obvious to everybody in here? So I'm watching and I'm getting closer and I'm nervous, right? At this point, I'm
Mm.
actually physically shaking and I'm sweating. Like I was like, oh my God, I'm sweating because
Where you feel for yourself as well as the two boys.
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, if they're arresting two black guys for literally not buying a coffee, what are they going to do to me? And mind you, I had been sitting next to a white guy for 45 minutes. He didn't have a coffee. I saw a white girl walk in mid jog and use the bathroom. And I remember that because I remember thinking to myself, I wonder if she works here, that she knows the code to the bathroom. I wonder if she patrons here so often that she just knows the code because when you're black, sometimes you police your own body. I would never do that. When I go into places, sometimes I purposely will buy something small just to use the bathroom because I don't want any attention on me. So when I see people do it, and I'm like, damn,
Wow.
maybe I should just start doing that. Maybe I should just start using the bathroom places. But I don't think to do that. So as I'm remembering these scenes as I'm like approaching the cops, I'm like, what the hell? Now, mind you, now there's eight. There are eight
Hmm.
police officers to arrest two guys for not buying a coffee. Eight.
Wow.
They actually put these guys in handcuffs and put them in the back of the squad car and took them to jail because since they didn't comply right away, they were like, oh well, now you're trespassing.
Comply to what? Comply for what?
For what?
For what? How is that even possible? I mean, like you said, there's many layers to this. Obviously, the one for me that stands out right away is that there's a huge the huge problem is that the cops follow through with a lot of these things, and they're supposed to be the
Yeah.
people that are understanding and protecting. And this is the problem. This is why people are screaming to defund the police and to reform it, because people will and always will weaponize white privilege. And she's doing it
Oh
very
yeah.
clearly, weaponizing her white privilege. She knows exactly what to do. And my favorite video from this whole time I've been watching stuff, like taking all this stuff inside, imbibing all this information from social media, is Trevor Noah's video. Have you seen that
Mm,
video?
yes.
Where he says, when someone does that, when a woman, and we finally have that video with the woman, with the dog, Amy,
Amy Cooper.
yep, Amy Cooper, it's stating one thing very clearly. You know what racism is, you know what your white privilege is, and you know how to use it with the police, which means you understand that the police is also racist and also
Yep.
systematically working against black people, because you're
Yep.
knowing. And it's like showing up and playing a video game and being like amazing at it and saying, "Oh, I didn't know. I've never played this before." It's like, what are you
Right.
talking about? You know?
You
Yeah,
practiced.
yeah, you know exact, which means that we all do, which means that it's an
Mhm.
underwritten thing that we all learned the same way that you can see videos of infant black children understanding that they can't yell at police because they're going to get shot, or their parents will get
Yep.
shot, or telling their parents not to cry, or controlling their emotions. It's silencing people. And it's the
Yep.
whole thing. It all comes back to that idea that you're silencing, controlling. And my God, it's like, it's infuriating. And the thing is that's infuriating too is that what you just said is, I was at the protest in LA, and one of the cops, and Isa turns to me, because Isa, we were right at the front row, right to the side of the front row, where people were lined up in front of the cops, like beginning to yell at them, and it was
Mm-hmm.
really between the people, the protesters, and the cops. And we were standing there. Neither of us are violent people. Neither of us believe in that, and um, neither of us are people who are going to scream at the top of our lungs. It's not our personalities, right? Um, we were there. We were protesting. We came. We're watching this go down, and the cops are like, "There's a line. If you pass this line, like we will use force. Okay, there's a line. If you pass this line, we'll use force." And one of the cops turned to one of the protesters, and Isa goes, "Did you see what that guy just did?" And I said, "No, what?" She goes, "He told the woman to come here and whisper something in his ear. He told the woman to come over here and whisper something to him because they're provoking and
Yep.
they understand they're protected." And
Yep.
witnessing it and then seeing also watching someone do get into a confrontation where they are beating a man, and in this case it was a white man, was getting beaten with a baton, you're helpless. Because if you're not, look, I don't expect everyone to be a soldier where you're willing to throw your body in front of the police and take
Right.
a beating. I don't think that that's a position you can put in front of everybody. And we've seen it now. It's such a difficult thing to stand there and watch it and go, you're helpless. You're frozen.
Yeah.
You're like, stop. You're standing, you take a step forward, you take a step back. You take a step forward, you take a
Yeah.
step back. And you're like, you're helpless. But but as white people, we never face that. I have to
Yeah.
go to a protest where I know there's a chance of like disrest and civil unrest and anger, and I'm going there knowing that. And yet you're talking about that exact same feeling, which is gut wrenching, which is like you go home and you feel sick for days, you don't know what to
Yep.
do. You're guilty, and you're facing that all the time. And that feeling that you're talking about is just insane to me. And it's something that even talking to you now, reiterating it, like, how is it possible? How is it possible when you know that feeling? For me, that guilt that sits in your stomach afterwards,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have it that often. I
Yeah.
don't have it that often because I'm not in situations where I have to choose between protecting someone I love or my own safety. I don't have to choose between safety and anything
Right.
almost ever. And
Right.
that's the privilege. Like I don't ever have to think, "Oh man, if I speak up, I'm going to lose my job. I'm a fencer. I'm not going to lose my job. You need me to win medals, you know?" So
Right.
like, and it's like, and the difference is that Kaepernick did. Kaepernick did lose his job. Did Megan Rapinoe? No,
Nope.
no.
Nope.
So
Great point.
there is many differences to this, and there's many layers. And what you're saying for me, and I think the thing that people can take away from this right away is that it's a it's not even necessarily we know all the issues. Everyone knows all the issues. We're seeing it all the time. We know how to use the system. We know the
Mm-hmm.
issues.
Mm-hmm.
But what we don't understand is what it's like to be in the other person's shoes. And
Yeah.
unless we try to do that, there's no way you'll feel any consciousness to try to improve yourself and improve the people around you.
No. And I don't think these white people are going to the protest anticipating the violence that they're being met with.
Yes. I
I
don't
don't
think so
think that
either.
it's, they're probably really shocked by it.
Yes.
We're not shocked. Like I said, I spoke up because it wasn't a matter of am I going to do something. It was what was I going to do? But I knew if I didn't do something, I would feel guilty because I'm watching my brothers go through this.
And
And
you're putting your life at stake when you do that.
right, so I actually went up to the cop and I said, "Why are you doing this?" I was shaking,
I'm sure.
and I walked up to him and I said, "Why are you doing this?" And he said, "Go ask the barista." And I was like, so you don't have any accountability or responsibility to assess the situation. So is that how this works now? I could just call 911 and remove anyone from this. Is that where we tell you what to do now? Okay. I was like, whatever. So I went and confronted her and I said, "Why'd you call the cops?" And her face and her chest got whoosh, bright red immediately. And she did that stupid damsel in distress voice, and she was like stuttering. She was like, I can't say," as if there was something. And I go, "Oh, I can say. I watched the whole thing happen from beginning to end." I said, "Did you feel like your life was in danger?" And she ignored me, and she walked down the Starbucks aisle. I was like, "Oh, hell no." And so I followed her, and I asked her again. I said, "Did you feel like you were being threatened?" And she completely ignored me. So I took a step back, excuse my language, I yelled at her. I was like, "You're a fucking coward." And I walked
Mm-hmm.
back to my table. I'm packing up all my stuff. And now it's like dead silent. I see all these mostly white women staring at me. And I'm seeing them kind of move. I saw a girl to my left, her lip was quivering. And I'm like, "Oh shit, if she cries, I'm going to cry." There was a girl next to me who I could tell was kind of like waiting for my direction because I was packing up my stuff, and she started like look
Hmm.
at me, and she starts packing up her stuff too. She was like, "Yeah, man." She was like I gotta go. But the only other person that day to address the Starbucks, besides the men that the man that their friend that they were meeting, was my partner now, Melissa. I saw her from across the Starbucks. I don't know why, but we like locked eyes, and she stood up and she was like, "I come here all the time. I was just here the other day for like 4 hours. No one ever asks me to leave, and you know why." So we like staged a walk out. We walked out. I asked the cops again. I go, "Do you guys understand that you are arresting two dudes for not buying a coffee?" And they actually turned their backs to me. They literally turned around. Like the most, I was like, "Oh my God, I'm living in the fucking Twilight Zone right now." Like this just really happened. Well, and you know what happens, but when you see it, it's even more just outrageous.
Mm.
And I was angry at the white silence. I was really, really angry at that because half the people in there didn't have coffees. And I actually said that. I was like, half of you people in here don't have coffees.
And so what do you say to those people that are now vocal? What do you
Um,
say about those same people? If you're having this conversation, if I'm one of those people that sat by in that Starbucks and didn't say shit, right? And
yeah.
now I'm all on board. I'm posting pictures. I'm posting my little black box. I'm doing hashtag BLM. What do you have to say to me?
Um, I'm glad you're finally here. I hope you're backing up your posts with action.
Hmm.
Because to be honest with you, that day in Starbucks, I think it changed almost everybody. Um, like I said, those girls that I talked to outside the Starbucks that day, they were like, "Oh my gosh, you're right. We could have freaked out because we were white." There's another girl that I'm still friends with to this day from that. The
Yep.
woman that I saw crying, her lip was quivering. She had no clue it was that bad. She had no clue. So I think when you're in that moment, when you have such a disruptive moment like that, it's really hard to not see things for what it is. So I feel like if anyone going forward from that situation is now um, activating or whatnot, I'm
Hmm.
like I'm glad you're finally here. Because
Hmm.
yeah, I try not to, like I said, that day I think it was just for, because again, because we don't talk about race, those people probably probably just assumed, well, maybe they found these guys from somewhere else. Maybe they're following up on something. Maybe they were chasing these guys. You can come up with so many reasons because racism doesn't make sense. You don't have to say a racial slur to be doing something racist. That woman just, and the CEO of Starbucks, I forget his name. I can't remember his name. He admitted that he asked her if they were white, would you have called the cops? And she said no. So that
My
goes back.
God.
So that goes. So that goes back to
Uh,
what you said
yeah.
about they know deep down. You know what you're
Yes.
doing. You're
Yes.
using it as a weapon. You're wielding it as a weapon, and
Yes.
you're trying to pretend like I didn't know what was going on. You knew.
Absolutely.
And we feel like there was such a big moment because a lot of people go to Starbucks. They actually specifically say when a Starbucks shows up in a neighborhood, it's about to get gentrified because a lot of white people go to Starbucks.
Yeah, when you said it the first time, when you were like, "Oh, I went to a Starbucks, and Philly is mostly," you said, a predominantly black, right?
Black city, yeah.
And there's a Starbucks, I would have assumed right away, because
Mm,
you're automatically talking about, um, you're talking about business, and we have to remember that business controls everything.
yep.
When we see these organizations speaking up right now, it's important to hold them accountable the same way you would hold an individual accountable. And how you said that
Yes.
you're happy to see me here, I think is very interesting. Is if I'm the person who didn't speak up there, right?
Right.
Because unfortunately, I think that unfortunately it takes everybody. And the only way to from what I can tell, I can scream at the top of my lungs. I can have 100 million followers and post every day. But the difference, it's the impact is not there. And the impact, I believe, and this is what I'm starting to process now, and it's taken me till this point, is just that the organization is key. That if every person had been able to stand up and understood right away that in these situations, if everyone stands up and said those guys are fine, those cops would have had way less power.
Exactly.
If all 30 people from the from the other baristas to you guys to the
Yep.
to white women, if everyone had stood up right away and immediately gone, no, we didn't see anything, but they weren't causing any trouble, they've been
Yep.
calm, they've been sitting there, it would have been a completely different conversation. And the
Yep.
way that we're weaponizing whiteness, we need to weaponize privilege too. And
Yes.
the weaponizing privilege in situations like that can save lives, because a
Yep.
lot of the times we blame, especially white people, are blaming the kid for reacting incorrectly, right?
Yep.
When we know that's not the issue. We know the cops are bad. We've seen it all. We've seen it all week, all year, all, 400 years, whatever you want to go back to. The person
Yep.
with the power, the white person with power, is always doing the wrong goddamn thing, 99% of the time. And look, I I I do believe there is a position to weaponize that and to educate about that, so that when it does come time, when you do see it in your little world, that you can. And it happens all the time in the office. Those slights,
Mhm.
you see it all the time. I talk with Isa all the time. Isa's been we've gone into stores and Isa's like, "Do I look good?" And I'm like, "What are you talking
Oh,
about?" No, but it's
yeah.
that
It's
situation. Do I
yes.
look good?
No.
And
Yep.
as a white guy, you just answer like, "Yeah, you look great all the time. What are you talking about? Let's go inside." It's like, no, do I look like, they're gonna think that like whatever, oh, this is not
Yep.
about, and
Yep.
you, by doing what I did the first time, by just being like, oh yeah, it's okay, we're just gonna go inside, it's gonna be fine. I'm I'm not weaponizing my privilege. I'm not saying no, fuck that. Like, I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna wear sweatpants, I'm gonna stand next to you, and if anyone talks badly to you, I will correct them, because I'm not taking any responsibility for any of those situations. And it has to be, there has to be accountability. And what you just said is like, that's huge. Accountability for like the ignorance and for this weaponizing of whiteness. It's everywhere. It is everywhere. And you see it all the time. You see it all the time. And in New York City, you see it all the time. I've seen it
Mm.
all the time. And in fencing in particular, you see it all the time. If a black woman says what she wants to say, or a black man says what he wants to say in fencing, everybody zooms out. Everybody's like, oh, whoa, what, oh, this, what are you talking about? You know?
Right. Yeah.
And there's very few people that are willing to stick up for the person who is angry, who is feeling that way, and is willing to have that conversation. I think that we all have to take accountability for ourselves for not doing that for so long, because we weren't there. As all of us are posting these boxes, even
Mhm.
me, you know me now for a year because I took a
Yeah.
knee, right?
Yep.
I'm a year young. It's not a very long time to be really, really active in this.
Right.
I am no, and I'm going to say this, and I'm sorry if I don't really, I try not to curse on these things, but
So,
I am no fucking hero. And
yeah.
I don't, I don't think that we need that. And I don't think that we need white heroes right now, but we definitely need a re-education, and there needs to be a
Yes.
massive organization in all communities, not
Yes.
only the black communities, but in white communities too, to weaponize that white privilege, to make those
Yep.
calls, to step down, to give representation. Unfortunately, it's going to take white people stepping down to
Yep.
give black people representation. Isn't that insane? We have to have people who say, I'm willing to do this for somebody else. It's crazy. We're in that period, right?
It is.
And I
No sense
actually,
of community.
exactly. There is, it's very but it's very difficult to have a sense of community. Guys, we're living on a phone. We're in quarantine. It's just the perfect storm right now, you know?
Yeah.
It's the perfect storm for all of this shit. I said to Isa, for me, when you saw the two for me, the two videos back to back was Ahmaud Arbery running and watching George Floyd. And I said, when I saw the video of him running, I said right away, I was like, this is different. And she was like, what do you mean? And I was like, you're riding along with a white person. You always see this as a black kid surrounded by angry black people with one cop who's supposed to be nervous, right?
Right.
But he's the one with the gun and the bulletproof vest. But
Right.
it's much easier to manipulate your view when you see that, and to listen to Fox or listen to whatever your media source is and say, oh, look, it's like he's just doing his job. Of course he's nervous. Look how many people there are there. It's a crazy situation. He didn't know if he's reaching for a gun. There was no excuse when you ride along in a lynching.
Zero.
When
There
you
was no fear.
watch when
It
you
was a
watch that
hunt.
video, it was a hunt. And I thought, damn, that's a huge that's rough. Like, that's really rough for people. I want to see what people have to say about this. And they tried. They tried to come up with some backstory, and they
Always.
tried. And then right after, you had 8.5 minutes of a guy having his life taken from him by an unresponsive, racist, unresponsive cop who had no willingness to have any kind of no willingness of any kind of compassion for a human being at all. Like none, 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 none. And so for me, those two back to back, and then I listened to Trevor Noah's video, and I was very, very very interested on his idea of this video of Amy Cooper speaking and weaponizing whiteness. And I think those three videos, it's a powerful 1, 2, 3 combination. And we
Yeah.
need to let that sink in, and we need to take the loss. We need to take the loss. We need to take the loss as white people. You need to say, look, this is enough. We lost the goddamn, like, this is it. You can't fake it anymore. You know,
You
it's
can't fake it
impossible. It's
anymore.
impossible after that. It's impossible after that. If you
You
go
know,
into any conversation right now and try to say that there's any loophole there for wiggle room after those three videos, and after seeing what's happening now with how the looters are being treated and who's really doing it, and the misinterpretation of all the media that's going on, there's no way. There's no way.
then you're just a racist. It's shown so many like damn, like you can really still be making excuses. And what you said about, I'm not sure if you said this, I think you did, but the weaponing of sorry, using the privilege as a weapon as well. That's
Mm-hmm.
why we named our organization From Privilege to Progress. We were very, I mean, we even had like activists, like it was actually even like Sean King was like, I'm not sure if you want to use that word because it's going to be triggering. It's like, listen, we're very intentional. We intentionally use that word to let people know you have it and you need to use it. I mean, think about this. These protests are being met with cops who are tear gassing and shooting people with rubber bullets. Peaceful protesters.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm seeing happening, and I'm hoping what the majority of white Americans are realizing, is that your silence is what allowed the cops to continue what they've been doing for 450 years.
It is true.
And now that you're standing alongside us and you're saying Black Lives Matter and you're saying stop killing Black people in broad daylight out of nowhere, they're
Mm-hmm.
saying, oh, well, now you broke our unspoken social contract, which was you be quiet and let us do whatever we want to do and we protect you.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're saying, oh, now you're with the Black people? Well, screw you too. And now we're going to shoot you in the face. Now we're going to tear gas you. Now we're
Mm-hmm.
going to run into you with our freaking vehicles. I saw a video. Now we're going to push over a 75-year-old frail man and let him bleed out on the floor, all because he's saying Black Lives Matter?
Yeah.
Like, I hope people understand the severity and depth and weight and magnitude of that. These cops want to keep doing whatever they want to do to us. They're
That is
saying,
true.
they're like, no, we don't want to stop killing people, so
Yep.
we are going to hurt you. So
Yep.
I mean, because 3 weeks ago, maybe more than that, three weeks, a month ago, there were white guys with AK-47s storming government buildings to say we want our hair cut. Where was the fear? These guys
None.
came with guns. Protesters are not showing up with any
Yep.
weapons at all.
And you have a child with a toy gun that gets shot.
Yep. I mean, I think this is different because I think I've never seen this before. I've never seen so many, even of my own personal friends, doing reading, educating themselves. I've never had this many people reach out to me. Our count last 3 weeks ago was 15,000 people. Now we're at 240 some thousand. Like,
wow.
Like insanity. So I am feeling a shift, and I think you're right. I think it was that perfect storm of Ahmaud, of George, of Breonna Taylor, and it was like back to back to back. And then people are inside, and you're angry, and it's like, people couldn't turn away from what was happening. No. They couldn't be busy with their lives to shut off the news and not pay attention. It was everywhere. It was all over your timelines, and I think they're realizing that this is going to continue until white voices are in the conversation.
Yep. I have a 1 minute timer coming up on my thing. I think that they're going to boot us off of here in 1 minute. Do you want to step off? I'll save this and share it, and then we'll come back on and we'll finish our conversation.
Yes.
Okay, because we have 1 minute remaining, it says. It just gave me a notification.
Okay.
So let's restart it. I'll be right back, guys.
Okay.